Hello, friends. Welcome to Salem Mason Happy Home. I wanted to do a follow up. I earlier this morning before I don't know, it's probably 8 o'clock. I had been listening to a debate put on by Surround Podcast, and it was a young man, 19 years old, named Dean Withers, who was disparaging Trump and Trump supporters, and he's a Trump hater and a Harris lover and stuff. And one of the things that he kept saying, like the very first thing out of his mouth, he was trying to, um, uh, I don't know, demonstrate or instigate dominance or something, was that Trump had been found guilty in an investigation about housing discrimination. Well, something nagged at me about that because I recall something of that time during the 60s and 70s. New York City in particular, but many other cities throughout the US did something called tester investigations. Tester investigations were part of the NAACP in particular and housing commissions in various cities, specifically the New York City Housing Commission, to root out housing discrimination and disparities with regard to race and the civil rights movement and so on. And this was routine. It was called tester investigations, where they would send in a black couple and a white couple separately and independently with the same income, the same kinds of jobs, the same everything except for their skin color, and see who was turned down and who wasn't. So this was not Donald Trump did this terrible thing. Yeah, he did, but he also owned it, and he also admitted it, and he also vowed never to do it again. However, what this little twit is not telling you, because he's just too young, and excuse me, he's coming from a place of 19 years on this planet, and of course, if you give him the first 5 years, he was probably more like a Cocker Spaniel, and then the next few years he was a stupid Twitter kid. So, I discredit everything that comes out of his pie hole. I'm surprised he's potty trained, but he didn't handle that correctly, because he was incorrect in so much as he was trying to make this out to be Trump is a big bad monster. Look what he did, when millions of people were involved in this. Many, many, many landlords, many, many real estate agencies, many, many housing authorities throughout the U.S. during the 60s and 70s, coming out of the civil rights movements and the Jim Crow laws, were conducting these routine test investigations throughout their cities, throughout the U.S. for at least 2 decades, and they probably still do it now. It's kind of like when you own a restaurant and you have to have the health department come in and routinely investigate and make sure that you're following the laws and so on. That is the kind of test that it was. It was a tester investigation, because a lot of health departments, especially if they're getting a lot of complaints about a restaurant, for example, or something like that, they're going to send in testers, fake actors, people that are pretending to be someone they're not, so that they can see for themselves from the customer's point of view. Maybe the customer isn't seeing it correctly. Maybe the customer doesn't know enough to understand. Maybe the customer is 1,000% right. But that's why they do that. This is routine. It's handled through every form of business. Governments do tester investigations, different levels in government, from federal, state, local, city, and so on. So, to clarify, Dean Withers, this this child, he came out of the gate at this debate. Well, and da 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 da, and he did this, and he did that, and he did this. And while he's doing this, he's also saying, and then Trump admitted it, and Trump did. Okay, well, so you're just negating your accusation, because he did something bad, but he accounted for it, he owned it, he atoned it, he asked forgiveness, he's vowed never to do it again, and he never did. And what he's not telling you is that this was not New York City going, there's this sinister villain in our midst named Donald Trump, and we know he's doing things, and we're going to find out. No, 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 no. This was routine. This was part of their government process. This is what they did. So it's not exclusive to Trump. It was every housing entrepreneur, whether you were a real estate agent, you handled HUD housing, apartments, rentals, whatever. It all came down to the same thing, that this was part of a routine thing called Tester investigations. And if you don't believe me, you can always look it up and get the skinny on Tester investigations. So I wanted to clarify that because it was nagging at me that he was making half statements or half truths. Sure, Trump did something wrong. We all do wrong things. The point, the universal, spiritual, human point of making mistakes, whether you know you're making it or not, is to own that mistake, correct it by never doing it again. Mistakes are lessons that we use to learn what to do and what not to do. If my parents had been horrible people, yeah, there were some things going on. They taught me not just what to do or how to be, but what not to do and what not to be, okay? Because we're all just living, breathing experiments. So to be human and make a mistake, they go hand in hand. That's how we learn, grow, evolve. That's how we deal with life. You make choices. Some of them are bad, some of them are good, but we learn from them. And a mistake is something that you do in error, but when you realize it's not, the point is not that you made the mistake, which is his shortfall. He made a mistake, therefore he's a horrible human being. What, a 78-year-old guy's made a mistake? Oh my God, really? Wow. Okay. The point is if you make a mistake and then you find out that it's a mistake, you're being called on it and you realize it is, you need to be the better person and admit that. And that's what Trump did. So I really, really fiercely defend Trump in this. Yeah, he did something foolish. He shouldn't have done it. And his policies moving forward, today is 2025, September 10, 2025. And all of the things that he's done, look into the Florida case where he sued, not Palm Springs, wherever Mar-a-Lago is, okay? He sued that community because they had Jim Crow laws on the books that said that blacks were not allowed to live in that community. They could not go to the restaurants and the golf courses and the resorts, and they could not be there. And he took that city to task, and he won because he was absolutely appalled by that. Now, who would take time, money, effort to take a city with Jim Crow laws to task, to court, to fight against those Jim Crow laws if he was a racist? And I could see from the look on young Dean Withers' face, I keep looking because his name just keeps blanking on my head. The look on young Withers' face when he was schooled by a woman, a professional who knew this case intimately, and she brought that up to him. He really didn't know that. So he did a little bit of his information. That's where this is such a problem. We are not just divided, but we are refusing to be open to why the other side hates us. And we need to stop doing that by doing your homework. And that's what I did. I did a little bit of homework. I saw this and I went, what the fuck? What is going on here? I knew that this was not, Trump is a villain exclusively thing. And so I looked it up and I did my research and read the documents and stuff so I could understand it. And that's what's going on. So look up Tester investigations and you'll have a broader understanding of what it is that Trump was involved in at that time. And let it go. And until next time, do good and be good. Mwah.